Now I'll be working on Unit 5 review. This is the first video. I'm going to do as much as I can in 15 minutes. Hopefully I can do the whole thing. So let's see what we can do. So we're going to start with number 1. Now as you can see, you're supposed to be solving the equation. So remember there are 4 steps that you need to follow. Number 1 is to try to factor the denominator, but as you can see they are all factored. So this is like r plus 3, r minus 2, r minus 2. You cannot really factor any of those. So the second step is to find the LCD. Now the LCD is basically the multiplication of everything that you see in front of you. And the reason behind that is that there's nothing in common. So r plus 3 and r minus 2 would be the LCD. As you can see, there are 2 r minus 2, so you take only one of them. After you find the LCD, the second step is to multiply by what's missing. So let's see. This has both of those, and this has only the r plus 3, so you need to multiply the 1 by what's missing, which is the r minus 2. So 1 times the r minus 2. Again, this one has both of them. This only has r minus 2, so what's missing is r plus 3, so you multiply r plus 4 by what's missing, which is the r plus 3. So r plus 4 times r plus 3. Now again, this has both of those. This only has r minus 2, so compare them, and you can see that what's missing is r plus 3. So you multiply 6 by r plus 3. Okay, our server is using a lot of my... Okay, whoops, let's go back. This is my ones and this ones. Okay. Now, the third step is to get rid of the denominator, and you can only do that because you have an equal sign, you have an equation. And you write down, you try to FOIL, so r minus 2 is equal to r squared, 3r, 4r, and 12. Then you distribute the 6, so you have 6r plus 18. Now what you need to do is to try to simplify and combine like terms. Since you have a quadratic equation, try to move everything to one side of the equation. So r squared, 3r, 4r, and 6r is 13r. 12 and 18, that would be a 30. So r minus 2 is equal to this much. Again, remember you need to move everything to one side of the equation. Now, since remember we have an r squared, so you need to move the r to the other side. This cancels out, and you move the 2 to the other side. This cancels out. So r squared plus 12r plus 32 is equal to 0. Nothing is left. So think of two numbers when you multiply, you get 32. And whenever you add, you get 12. And the two numbers are, think of it. What multiplies to give you 32 and add to give you 12? 8 and 4. So the two numbers are 8 and 4. So you have r plus 8 and r plus 4 are the factors. So then r can be either negative 8 or r can be negative 4. So these are the two values. Now what did I forget to do? I always forget to do that, so make sure that you don't forget. Every time it's an equation, you should have something called exclusion. How can you get those? From the bottom of your fractions. So r plus 3 equals to 0, so r is equal to negative 3. This is your first exclusion. R minus 2 is equal to 0, so r is equal to 2. That's your second exclusion. It means if you plug it in, let's try. 2 minus 2 is 0, and you cannot have a 0 in the denominator. R equals negative 3. You cannot have a negative 3 in the denominator. So then these are the exclusions. You have two values, negative 8 and negative 4. They are different from exclusions. So then they are both accepted. You have two solutions. Now, the reason why I have a calculator over here is because you can solve all of this, my regular on your calculator. My pre-AP, you can actually check your answer. So let's try to do that. Okay, remember alpha y equals, to write it as a fraction form, so enter. Now, what do you write on y1? See the equal sign? it's divided into a left side of the equation and right side of the equation. So on y1, you put one of the sides, and y2, you write the other side. So on y1, I'm going to put 1 over r plus 3. So I'm going to put, so x plus 3, you don't have an r. And on y2, I'm going to make it bold. So whenever it graphs, whenever I see the graph, I can actually see which one is my y1 and which one is my y2. So alpha y equals, to set it as an equation, as a fraction. So x plus 4 on top over x minus 2. And I can tell that the 15 minutes is going to be all spent on the first question. Okay, plus, it's okay, as long as you are learning, it's fine. Okay, enter. And then we have a 6 on top. And x minus 2 is on bottom. Okay, now let's try to graph that. As you can see, this is your first equation. And that's the bold one. This is your second one. Okay, there you go. Now, as you can see, there are two graphs. So to find the solution is actually to find wherever those two graphs meet. I can see that those two maybe will never meet. Those two might, but so let's zoom in. But remember, to get the intersection, you go to second trace, and you want the intersection of those two graphs. So number 5, try to move the cursor to where you want it to be. So I'm going to try to move it somewhere over here where I can tell that there's intersection. So I'm going to press enter 3 times. And there you go. That's my first solution. And there you go. See that? Okay. Now my second. So second trace. I'm going to press number 5. But you know what? It's going to be somewhere. I don't know where. So let me zoom in so I can see the other intersection. So zoom in number 2, press enter, and there you go. Now I can see that it's intersecting somewhere over here. Then it's like there's a blank. See the emptiness in here, and then maybe it intersects over there where the -4 is. So I'm going to do second trace number 5, which is intersect, and then I'm going to press enter 3 times, and it's going to give me my second intersection. There you go, -8. Now, so this is how you do it on the calculator. Remember, my pre-AP, you have to solve it. You can check your answer, but you have to solve it. So let's move on to number 2. Now, what is this? This is an expression. So can I use the calculator to do that? No. Can I just cancel the denominator? No. There's only 2 steps that you can do. Number 1 is to graph everything, and number 2 is to cancel out from top and bottom. You do that every time you have a multiplication or a division. So let's try to factor. The top, I can see that there's a GCF. So I'm going to take a 4x outside. I will be left with x minus 1. On the bottom, you can tell that it's a trinomial, so think of 2 numbers. When you multiply, you would get -3, and when you add, you get 2. 3 and -1, makes sense? Okay, 3 and -1, so x plus 3 and x minus 1. Now, the top is also a trinomial, so something that would multiply to get a -6 and add to get the 1. So what would that be? 3 and -2, so 3 and -2. And the 4x, you cannot really factor that. So the first step, every time you have an expression that has a multiplication and division in the middle, you have to factor and then simplify. So there you go. Okay, what's left is just an x minus 2. Then my answer is x minus 2. Very simple, right? If you're good at factoring, then it is simple. Now, number 3. Now, just like I said, division. You have to basically factor and cancel out. But before that, what do we do? You change division to multiplication, and then you flip the second fraction. Have you forgotten about that? Hopefully not. So over x squared minus x minus 6, and this is why some of you got this wrong on the quiz. You forgot to flip your second fraction. Now let's try to factor. The top, you cannot really factor it. The bottom, think of two numbers that would multiply to give you -4 and add to give you -5. Oh, I couldn't find anything until I realized. So yes, I do that as well. Okay, now something that you multiply to get -14 and add to give you -5. -7 and 2. Yes, and you are right. Now, remember you do that every time you have a trinomial. 21 and -10. 7 and 3, but -7 and -3 because you need a -10. That's a factoring, but it's okay, you got this. Something that multiply to get you -6 and -1. -3 and 2. Okay, -3 and 2. Okay, now you have to cancel out. So, +2 + 2, -7 -7, -3 -3. There you go. Now what's left on top? Nothing. Everything's canceled out. So 1 over x plus 2. So pretty easy whenever it's an expression that has division or multiplication. You just need to factor and cancel out, but remember whenever it's division, flip the second fraction first. Okay, an equation. So factor the denominator. Remember that's the first step always. So as you can see, x squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 squares. So you can square root 4 to get 2. So it's x minus 2, x plus 2. I'm going to copy the 4 here and the 1 over here. Now, exclusions. Yes, I heard you. I always forget that. So x is equal to, that's your first exclusion. And there's an x plus 2. So x -2 is your other exclusion. So you have 2 exclusions. Remember, if you can factor the bottom, factor it and then find your exclusion. So I have 2 of them. Now, multiply by what's missing. So the LCD is going to be everything you see in front of you. That's going to be your LCD. Now, multiply by what's missing. So compare, they're exactly the same. So it's going to be just 4. Compare. Oh, x plus 2 is missing. So multiply 1 by x plus 2, which is x plus 2. Then you cancel out denominator. Remember, you only do that if it's an equal sign. So 4 is equal to, you just read the 1, which is x plus 2. Subtract 2 to solve for x. So x is equal to 2. And you might think that the answer, but wait. It's the exclusion. So you cannot accept that. What do we call this? Extraneous solution. So basically there's no solution. Okay, let's move on. We still have like a minute. So should I do one more equation? Okay, I don't think I have time for this. I only have a minute, so let's do this. Number 6. Still 1 minute for this video because I cannot do more than 15 minutes on this. Okay. So GCF for the top, what's common? I can see that 2x squared is in common. So 8 divided by 2 is going to be a 4, so 4 on the inside. I have an x3, x2 is outside, so only x will be left, minus, all of it is out, nothing is left, so it's just 1. GCF on the bottom as well. What's common? I can see that x is in common. So if you take x out of here, 4x will be left. And if you take x, so -1 would be left. Common, cancel out. Also, there's an x and an x over here, so what's going to be left is just 2x, and that's how you simplify if you have an expression. Now, so we did 1, 2, 3, 4, I couldn't do 5, and then 6, and that will be the end of this video. Now, let's move on to the other video. Remember, I wish I can do more than 15 minutes. I hope this is helpful, and study well.